time. No, my dear Regina, I'm fine, thank you. It's very pleasant to be indoors. It's a devil's ring, that's what it is. Really?
I am very glad to see you, Mr. Manders.
How do you do, Mrs. Alving? Here I am, as I promised.
Always punctual.
Indeed, I was hard put to it to get away, what with vestry meetings and committees.
It's all the kinder of you to come in such good time. We can settle our business before dinner, but where is your luggage?
Well, my things are down at the village shop. I'm going to sleep there tonight.
Can't I persuade you to stay the night here this time?
You know, many thanks all the same. I will put up there as usual. It's so handy for getting on board the boat again.
Of course you shall do as you please. But it seems to me quite another thing now we are two old people.
Ha ha, you shall have your joke. But it is natural. You should be in high spirits today. First of all, there is the great event tomorrow, and also you've got Osvald home.
Yes, am I not a lucky woman? It is more than 2 years since he was home last, and he has promised to stay the whole winter with me. He is dreadfully tired. He came straight from Paris without breaking his journey.
Has he really? How nice and filial of him. Because there must be many more attractions in his life in Rome or in Paris, I should think.
Yes, but he has his mother here, you see. Bless the dear boy, he has got a corner in his heart for his mother still.
I'd be very sad if absence and preoccupation with such a thing as art were to dull the natural affections.
It would indeed. But there is no fear of that with him, I am glad to say. I am quite curious to see if you recognize him again. He will be down directly. He is just lying down for a little on the sofa upstairs. But do sit down, my dear friend.
Oh, thank you. You're sure I'm not disturbing you?
Of course not.
Very good. Well, then I will show you. Now, first of all, here's the... Tell me, Mrs. Alving, what are these books doing here?
Books? I am reading them.
Do you read this sort of thing?
Certainly I do.
And do you feel any the better or happier from reading books of this kind?
It makes me, as it were, more self-reliant.
That is remarkable, but why?
Well, they give me an explanation or a confirmation of lots of different ideas that have come into my own mind. But what surprises me, Mr. Manders, is that, properly speaking, there is nothing at all new in these books. There is nothing more in them than what most people think and believe. The only thing is that most people either take no account of it or won't admit it.
But good heavens, you don't seriously think that most people...
Yes, indeed I do.
Well, not here in the country at any rate, not here amongst people like ourselves.
Yes, amongst people like ourselves, too.
Well, I really don't think I
But
could...
what is the particular objection that you have to these books?
What objection? You surely don't suppose I have any particular interest in such productions.
In fact, you don't know anything about what you are denouncing.
I've read quite enough about these books to know I disapprove of them.
But your own opinion...
Mrs. Alving, there are many times in one's life one has to rely on the opinions of others. That is the way the world is, and it is quite right that it should be so. What would become society otherwise? Good heavens, what ideas you have. You choose such an extravagant way of expressing yourself sometimes.
You may be right.
Apart from that, I don't deny that literature of that kind may have a considerable attraction. And I certainly can't blame you for wishing to make yourself acquainted with the intellectual tendencies which I'm told are at work in the wider world in which you have allowed your son to wander for so long. But one doesn't talk about it, Mrs. Alving. One is certainly not called upon to account to everyone for what one reads or thinks in the privacy of one's own room.
Certainly not. I quite agree with you.
Just think of the consideration you owe to this orphanage, which you decided to build at a time when your thoughts on such subjects were very different from what they are now, as far as I'm able to judge.
Yes, I freely admit that. But it was about the orphanage that...
It was about the orphanage, quite so. Well, walk warily, dear Mrs. Alvin. And now let us turn to the business at hand. You see these?
The deeds.
Yes, indeed, the whole lot. And all in order. I can tell you, it was no easy task to get them on time. I practically had to put pressure on the authorities. They're almost painfully conscientious when it comes to the matter of settling property. But here they are. Here is the letter of conveyance of that part of the Rosenwald estate known as the Soviet property, with the buildings newly erected thereon, the chapel, the schoolmaster's house, the school. Here are the legal sanctions for the statutes of the institution. Here it is. See, it says statutes for the Captain Alving Orphanage.
That seems all in order.
I thought Captain was the better title to use rather than your husband's court title of Chamberlain. Captain seems less ostentatious.
Yes, just as you think best.
And here is the certificate of investment for the capital in the bank. The interest is being earmarked for the current expenses of the orphanage.
Many thanks. But I think it will be most convenient if you will kindly take charge of them.
With pleasure. I think it would be best to leave the money in the bank at present. The interest isn't very high, that's true. 4% at 6 months call. But in the future, if we can find a mortgage, and it will have to be a first mortgage, and on unexceptional security, we can consider the matter further.
Yes, yes, my dear Mr. Manders, you know best about all that.
I'll keep my eye on it. There is one other thing in connection with it I've often meant to ask you about.
What is that?
Shall we insure the buildings or not?
Of course, we must insure them.
Oh, but wait, just one moment, dear lady. Let us look at the matter a little more closely.
Of mine is insured. The house and its contents, my livestock, everything.
Naturally, of course, they are your own property. I do the exact same thing. But this is quite a different case. The orphanage is, so to speak, dedicated to higher uses.
Certainly, but
As far as I'm personally concerned, I can conscientiously say that I don't have the slightest objection to insuring ourselves against all risk.
That is exactly
But
what
about the opinion of the people hereabouts?
Their opinion.
Is there some considerable body of opinion here, I'm talking opinion of some account, who might take exception to
What
it?
exactly do you mean by opinion of some account?
Well, I was thinking particularly of people of independent and influential position who one could hardly refuse to attach weight to their opinion.
There are a certain number of such people here who might perhaps take
That's just it. There are lots of them
exception
in
to
town. My fellow clergymen's congregations, for instance. They could very easily interpret it as meaning neither you nor I had a proper reliance on divine protection.
As far as you are concerned, my dear friend, you have at all events the consciousness.
My mind is quite at ease about it, that is true, but we cannot prevent a wrong and injurious interpretation of our action, and moreover, that sort of thing could very easily end in exercising a hampering influence on the work of the orphanage.
Well, if that is likely to be the effect of it, then
And I entirely overlook the difficult, may I say painful position that I might be placed in. In the best circles in town, this orphanage has attracted a great deal of attention. One might say that the orphanage was built for the benefit of the town, in hopes that it might lower the poor rate by a considerable amount. Now, as I've been your advisor, and I've helped with the business side of it, I'm afraid it shall be I that spiteful persons would attack first of all.
yes, you ought not to expose yourself to that.
Not to mention any attacks would undoubtedly be made upon me by certain newspapers and reviews.
Say no more about it, dear Mr. Manders. That quite decides it.
Then you don't wish it to be insured?
No, we will give up the idea.
But what if there was an accident? One can never tell. Would you be prepared to make good the damage?
No, I tell you quite plainly, I would not do so under any circumstances.
Still, you know, Mrs. Alving, after all, it is a very serious responsibility we're taking upon ourselves.
What do you think we can do otherwise?
No, that's just it. We can't do otherwise. We can't risk exposing ourselves to mistaken judgment, and we certainly have no right to risk any kind of scandal in the neighborhood.
You ought not to, as a clergyman, at any rate.
I think I can say that our enterprise will be attended by good fortune. Indeed, it will be under a special protection.
Let us hope so, Mr. Manders.
Then we'll leave it alone.
Certainly.
Very good, as you wish. No insurance, then.
It's a funny thing that you should just have happened to speak about that today.
I've often meant to ask you about it.
Because yesterday we very nearly had a fire up there.
Do you mean it?
Oh, as a matter of fact, it was nothing of any consequence. Some shavings in the carpenter shop caught fire.
Where Ingstrid works?
Yes. They say he is often so careless with matches.
Oh, the poor man. He has so many things on his mind, so many anxieties. Heaven be thanked, I'm told he's really making an effort to live a blameless life. He doesn't have a very strong character. He needs a guiding hand. He needs someone he can cling to, someone whose judgment he can rely on.
Really? Who told you so?
He assured me so himself. He acknowledged it quite freely the last time he came up to see me. He's a good workman, too.
Oh, yes, when he is sober.
Oh, that sad weakness of his. The pain in his leg often drives him to it, he tells me. The last time he was in town, I was really quite touched. He came up to my house and he thanked me gratefully for getting him work here, where he could have the chance to be with Regine.
He doesn't see very much of her.
But he assured me he sees her every day.
Well, perhaps he does.
He feels very strongly that he needs someone to hold on to when temptations assail him. That is the most winning thing about Jacob Ingstrid. He comes to one like a helpless child and accuses himself and confesses his frailties. The last time we talked, he... Suppose now, Mrs. Alving, that it were a necessity of his existence to have Regine at home with him again. Now, you ought not to set yourself against...
I set myself very definitely against that. And besides, you know Regine is to have a post in the orphanage.
But consider, after all, he is her father.
I know best what sort of a father he has been to her. No, she shall never go to him with my consent.
My dear lady, you ought not to judge so hastily. It's very sad how you misjudge poor Ingstrid. One would really think you were afraid of him.
That is not the question. I have taken Regine into my charge, and in my charge she remains. Hush. Dear Mr. Manders, don't say any more about it. Listen. Osvald is coming. We will only think about him now.
Oh. Well, I beg your pardon. I thought you were in the office. Well, good morning, Mr. Manders.
Oh my, it's most extraordinary.
Yes, what do you think of him, Mr. Manders?
What can it possibly be?
Yes, it really is the prodigal son, Mr. Manders.
Oh, my dear young friend.
Well, the son came home then.
Osvald is thinking of the time when you were so opposed to the idea of his being a painter.
We are only fallible, and many steps seem awkward at first, then afterward... Welcome. Welcome, really, my dear Osvald. May I still call you Osvald?
What else would you think of calling me?
Oh, thank you. No, what I mean, my dear Osvald, is you must not imagine I have any unqualified disapproval of the artist's life. I admit that there are many, even in that career, who can keep the inner man from harm.
Let us hope so.
I know one who has kept both the inner and the outer man free from harm. Just take a look at him, Mr.
Yes,
Manders.
yes, Mother dear, of course.
Undoubtedly, no one can deny it. I hear you've begun to make a name for yourself. I've often seen mention of you in the paper, and very favorable mention, too. Although I must admit lately I've not seen your name so often.
I haven't done so much painting just lately.
An artist must take a rest sometimes, like other people.
Of course. At that time the artist is strengthening and preparing himself for a greater effort.
Well, yes. Mother, will dinner soon be ready?
In half an hour. He has a fine appetite, thank goodness.
And a liking for tobacco, too.
Oh, I found Father's pipe in the room upstairs.
That's what
and
it
I thought-
was. When Osvald came into the door with his pipe in his mouth, for a moment I thought it was his father in the flesh.
Really?
Can you say so? Osvald takes after me.
Yes, but there is an expression about the mouth, something about the lips. It reminds me exactly of Mr. Alving, especially when he smokes.
I don't think so at all. To my mind, Osvald has much more of a clergyman's mouth.
Well, yes, a good many of my colleagues in the church have a similar expression.
Put that pipe down. I don't allow any smoking in here.
All right. I only wanted to try it because I smoked it once when I was a child.
You?
Yes. It was when I was quite a little chap, and I can remember going upstairs to Father's room one evening when he was in very good spirits.
Can't remember anything about those days.
Well, yes, I remember plainly that he took me on his knee and let me smoke his pipe. "Smoke, my boy," he said. "Have a good smoke, boy." And I smoked as hard as I could until I felt I was turning quite pale and the perspiration was standing in great drops on my forehead. And then he laughed. Such a hearty laugh.
It was an extremely odd thing to do.
Mr. Manders, Oswald only dreamt it.
Oh, no, indeed, Mother. It was no dream because, well, don't you remember, you came into the room and carried me off to the nursery where I was sick. And I saw that you were crying. Did Father often play such tricks?
In his young days, he was full of fun.
And for all that, he did so much with his life. So much that was good and useful, I mean. Short as his life was.
Yes, my dear Osvald Alvin, you have inherited the name of a man who was undoubtedly both energetic and worthy. Let us hope it will be a spur to your energies.
It ought to be, certainly.
In any case, it was nice of you to come home on the day that is to honor his memory.
I could do no less for my father.
Let me keep him so long here. That's the nicest part of what he has done.
Yes, I hear you're going to spend the winter at home.
I am here for an indefinite time, Mr. Manders. Oh, it's good to be home again.
Isn't it?
You went out into the world at a very young age, my dear Oswald.
I did. I sometimes wonder if I wasn't too young.
Not a bit of it. It is the best thing for an active boy, and especially for an only child. It's a pity when they are kept at home with their parents and get spoiled.
That is a very debatable question, Mrs. Alvin. A child's home is and always must be his proper place.
Oh, there I agree entirely with Mr. Manders.
Take the case of your own son now. Oh, yes, we can talk about it in front of him. Now, what is the result then in this case? He's nearly 30, still a young man, and yet he's never had the opportunity of learning what a well-regulated home means.
Excuse me, Mr. Manders, but you are quite wrong there.
Indeed, I thought your life abroad had practically been spent entirely in artistic circles.
So it has.
And chiefly amongst the younger artists.
Certainly.
But I thought those gentry, as a rule, didn't have the means necessary for a family life and the support of a home.
There are a considerable number of them who have not the means to marry, Mr. Manders.
That is exactly my point.
But they can have a home of their own all the same. A good many of them do. And they are very well regulated and very comfortable homes, too.
Oh, I'm not talking of bachelor establishments. When I talk of home, I mean family life. The life a man lives with his wife and his children.
Exactly. Or with his children. And his children's mother.
Good heavens.
What is the matter?
Lives with his children's mother?
Well, would you rather he should repudiate his children's mother?
Then what you are talking about are those unprincipled conditions known as irregular unions.
Well, I've never noticed anything particularly unprincipled about these people's lives.
Do you mean to say it is possible for a man of any sort of bringing up and a young woman to reconcile themselves to such a way of life and to make no secret of it either?
Poor artist and a poor girl, it costs a good deal to get married. What else are they to do?
What are they to do? Mr. Alvin, I'll tell you what they ought to do. They ought to keep away from each other from the very beginning. That's what they ought to do.
That advice wouldn't have much effect upon hot-blooded young folk in love.
No, indeed it wouldn't.
I think that the authorities tolerate such a thing, that it's allowed to go on openly. Had I so little reason to be sadly concerned for your son, in circles where immorality is rampant, well, one might say it is...
Let me tell you this, Mr. Manders. I have been a constant Sunday guest at one or two of these irregular households.
On Sunday, too?
Yes, that is the day of leisure. But never have I heard one objectionable word there. Still less have I ever seen anything that could be considered immoral. No, but do you know where and when I have met with immorality in artist circles?
So thank heaven I don't.
Well, then I shall have the pleasure of telling you. I have met with it when someone or other of your model husbands and fathers have come out there to have a bit of a look around on their own account, and have done the artists the honor of looking them up in their humble quarters. Then we had a chance of learning something. I can tell you, these gentlemen were able to instruct us about places and things that we had never so much as dreamt of.
What do you want me to believe? Honorable men, when they get away from
Have you
their
never,
homes...
when these same honorable men come home again, heard them deliver themselves on the subject of the prevalence of
Yes,
immorality?
of course, but...
Well, you can take their word for it unhesitatingly. Some of them are experts in the matter. They think that the glorious freedom of the beautiful life over there should be so besmirched.
Doesn't get you heated, Oswald. You gain nothing by that.
No. You're quite right, Mother. It is because I am so infernally tired, you know. I will go take a turn before dinner. I beg your pardon, Mr. Manders. It is impossible for you to realize the feeling. But it takes me that way.
My poor boy.
You may well say so. This is what it has brought him to. He called himself the prodigal son. It is only too true, alas, only too true. And what do you say to all this?
I say that Oswald was right in every single word he said.
Right. Right to hold such principles as that.
Out here it is terribly lonely. And you know yourself what it is to be alone in the world. In my loneliness here, I have come to just the same opinions as he, Mr. Manders. But I have never presumed to venture upon such topics in conversation. Now there is no need. My boy shall speak for me.
You deserve the deepest pity, Mrs. Alving. It is my duty to have an earnest word with you. It is no longer your businessman and advisor, no longer your old friend and your dead husband's old friend that stands before you now. It is your pastor that stands before you, just as he did once at a most critical moment of your life.
And what is it that my pastor has to say to me?
First of all, let me stir your memory. The moment is well chosen. Tomorrow is the 10th anniversary of your husband's death. Tomorrow the memorial to the departed shall be unveiled. Tomorrow I shall speak before the whole assembly that will have met together. But today I want to speak to you alone.
Very well, Mr. Manders, speak.
Have you forgotten that after barely a year of married life you were standing on the very edge of a precipice? That you forsook your house and home? That you ran away from your husband? Yes, Mrs. Alving, ran away. Ran away. And refused to return to him in spite of his request and entreaties.
Have you forgotten how unspeakably unhappy I was during that first year?
To crave for happiness in this life is to simply be possessed by a spirit of revolt. What right have we to happiness? No, we have our duty, Mrs. Alving, and your duty was to cleave to the man you had chosen and to whom you were bound by a sacred bond.
You know quite well what sort of a life my husband was living at that time, what excesses he was guilty of.
I know only too well what rumor used to say of him, and I would be the last person to approve of a young man's conduct if rumor spoke the truth. But it is not a wife's part to be a husband's judge. You should have considered it your bounden duty to have humbly borne the cross that had been laid upon you by a higher will, but instead, you rebelliously cast off that cross. You deserted the man whose stumbling footsteps you should have supported. You did what was bound to imperil your good name and reputation and came very near to imperiling the reputation of others in the bargain.
Others? Of one other, you mean?
It was the height of imprudence you're seeking refuge with me.
A pastor with our intimate friend?
All the more on that account. You should thank God I possess the necessary strength of mind that I was able to turn you away from your outrageous intention, that it was vouchsafed to me to succeed in leading you back to the path of duty and back to your lawful husband.
Yes, Mr. Manders, that certainly was your doing.
I was just beginning my pastoral work and was young, but I knew what was right and what was wrong. I was but the humble instrument of a higher power. And is it not true that my having led you back to the yoke of duty and obedience sowed the seeds of rich blessings in all the rest of your life? Did things not work out as I foretold you? Did your husband not turn away from a straying path as a man should? Did he not after that live a life of love and good rapport with you all the rest of his days? Did he not become a benefactor to the neighborhood? Did he not raise you up to his level so that by degree became his fellow worker in all his undertakings? And a noble fellow worker, I will grant you that praise, Mrs. Alving. But now I come to the second serious false step in your life.
What do you mean?
Just as you once forsook your duties as a wife, you have forsaken them as a mother.
Oh!
You have been overmastered all your life by a disastrous spirit of willfulness. All your impulses have led to what is unwillful and lawless. You've never been able to submit to any kind of restraint. Anything that seemed irksome to you, you cast it aside recklessly and unscrupulously, as if it was some burden you could easily rid yourself of. It didn't please you to be a wife, so you left your husband. It was irksome to you to be a mother, so you sent your child away amongst strangers.
That is true, I did.
And that is why you are a stranger to him.
No, I am not.
You must be. Look what kind of a son you've got back. Think about it seriously, Mrs. Alving. You erred grievously in your husband's case, and you acknowledge that by erecting this memorial to him. Now you are bound to acknowledge how you erred in your son's case. Possibly it is not too late to reclaim him from the path of wickedness. Turn over a new leaf and set yourself to reforming him that is still capable of reformation. Because in very truth, Mrs. Alving, you are a guilty mother. That is what I thought it my duty to say to you.
You have had your say, Mr. Manders. And tomorrow you will be making a public speech in memory of my husband. I shall not speak tomorrow. But now I wish to speak to you for a little, just as you have been speaking to me.
By all means. No doubt you wish to bring forward some excuses for your
No!
behavior.
I only want to tell you something.
Well?
In all that you said just now about me and my husband, and about our life together after you had, as you put it, led me back into the path of duty, there was nothing that you knew at first hand. From that moment, you never again set foot in our house. You who had been our daily companion before that.
Remember that you and your husband moved out of town immediately
Yes,
afterwards.
and you never once came out here to see us in my husband's lifetime. It was only the business in connection with the orphanage that obliged you to come and see me.
Helen, if that is the approach, I can only beg you to consider.
Respect you owe your calling, that in your position you had to protect your reputation, yes. All the more as I was a wife who had tried to run away from her husband. One can never be too careful to have nothing to do with such reckless women.
My dear Mrs. Alvin, you are exaggerating dreadfully.
Yes, very well. What I mean is this, that when you condemn my conduct as a wife, you have nothing more to go upon than ordinary public opinion.
I admit it, what did
Well, now, Mr. Manders, now I am going to tell you the truth. I had sworn to myself that you should know it one day, you and you only.
And what may the truth be?
The truth is this, that my husband died just as great a profligate as he had been all his life.
What do you say?
After 19 years of married life, just as profligate in his desires at all events, as he was the day we were married.
Can you talk of his youthful indiscretions, his irregularities, his excesses, if you will, as a profligate life?
That was what the doctor who attended him called it.
I don't understand what you mean.
It's not necessary that you should.
To think that your marriage, all the years of wedded life with your husband, nothing more than a hidden abyss of misery.
That and nothing else. Now you know.
I'm bewildered. I don't understand. I can't grasp. How in the world is such a thing possible? How could such a state of things remain concealed?
It was just what I had to fight for incessantly, day after day. When Osvald was born, I thought I saw a slight improvement, but it didn't last long. And after that, I had to fight doubly hard. Fight a desperate fight so that no one should know what sort of a man my child's father was. You know quite well what an attractive manner he had. It seemed as if people could believe nothing but good of him. He was one of those men whose mode of life seems to have no effect upon their reputations. But at last, Mr. Manders, you must hear this too. At last, something happened more abominable than everything else.
More abominable than what you've told
I
me.
had borne with it all, though I knew only too well what he indulged in secret when he was out of the house. But when it came to the point of the scandal coming within our four walls, I didn't have to see it.
And you made it here.
It was here in our own home. It was in there, right there in the dining room, that I got the first hint of it. I was busy with something and the door was standing ajar. I heard our maid come up from the garden with water for the flowers in the conservatory. Shortly afterwards, I heard my husband come in too. I heard him say something to her in a low voice, and then I heard... It rings in my ears still, with its mixture of what was heartbreaking and what was so ridiculous. I heard our own servant, Joanna, whisper, "Let me go, Mr. Alvin. Let me be."
You couldn't have meant anything by it, but surely it was nothing more than levity, Mrs. Alvin, believe me.
I soon knew what to believe. I heard with my own ears the pleading, then giggling, then moans. My husband had his will of the girl, and that intimacy had consequences, Mr. Manders.
And all that in this house. In this house.
I have suffered a good deal in this house. To keep him at home in the evening and at night, I have had to play the part of boon companion in his secret drinking bouts in his room up there. I have had to sit there alone with him. I've had to hobnob and drink with him. I've had to listen to his ribald, senseless talk. I've had to fight with brute force to get him to bed.
And you were able to endure all
I
this.
had my little boy and endured it for his sake. But when the crowning insult came, when my own servant, then I made up my mind that there should be an end of it. I took the upper hand in this house, absolutely, both with him and all the others. I had a weapon to use against him, you see. He didn't dare to speak against me. It was then that Osvald was sent away. He was about 7 then and was beginning to notice things and ask questions as children will. I could not endure all that, my friend. It seemed to me that the child would be poisoned if he breathed the air of this polluted house. That was why I sent him away. And now you understand, too, why he never set foot here as long as his father was alive. No one knows what agony it was to have to do it. I had to protect my child.
You have indeed had a most pitiable experience.
I could never have gone through with it if I had not had my work. Indeed, I can boast that I have work. All the increase in the value of the property, all the improvements, all the useful arrangements that my husband got the honor and glory of. Do you suppose that he troubled himself about any of them? He who used to lie the whole day on the sofa reading old official lists. You may as well know that, too. It was I that kept him up to the mark when he had his lucid intervals. It was I that had to bear the whole burden of it when he began his excesses again or took to whining about his miserable condition.
And this is the man you are building a memorial to.
There you see the power of an uneasy conscience.
An uneasy conscience, what do you mean?
I had always before me the fear that it was impossible that the truth should not come out and be believed. That is why the orphanage is to exist, to silence all rumors and clear away all doubt.
You have certainly not fallen short on that mark, Mrs.
I had
Alvin.
another very good reason. I did not wish Osvald, my own son, to inherit a penny that belonged to his father.
Then it is with Mr. Alvin's property.
Precisely. The sums of money that year after year I have given towards this orphanage make up the amount of property. I have reckoned it carefully, which in the old days made Lieutenant Alvin a catch. The rest is my money, the money I made.
I understand.
I sold myself for that sum. I don't wish it to pass into Oswald's hands. My son shall have everything from me. I am determined. Back again, my own dear boy.
Yes. What can one do outside in this everlasting rain?
It's a splendid rain for the farmers.
Yes, you're quite right. I think so little about that. I suppose dinner is nearly ready. Let me go and see if Regine needs any help.
We will come in a moment. Will you drink white or red wine, darling?
Both.
How in the world will I ever have the courage tomorrow to speak the address?
Oh, you will get through it.
Yes, we must raise no suspicions.
And then this long, dreadful comedy will be at an end. I shall be free at last. After tomorrow, I shall feel as if my dead husband had never lived in this house. There will be no one else here then but my boy and his mother.
What's the matter? What is it, Mrs. Alvey?
Ghosts. The couple in the dining room, all over again.
What are you saying? Is she? Is she?
Yes. Come. Not a word. Aren't you coming in here, Osvald?
No, I think I'll go out for a bit.
Yes, do. The weather is clearing. Regine, go down to the laundry and help with the garlands.
Suppose he can't hear us.
No, besides he is going out.
I'm still quite bewildered. I don't know how I was able to eat a mouthful of your excellent dinner.
Nor I, but what are we to do?
Yes, what are we to do? Upon my word, I'm completely unaccustomed to such things.
I am convinced that nothing serious has happened yet.
Heaven forbid, it was most unseemly behavior for all that.
It's nothing more than a foolish jest of Oswald, you may be sure.
Of course, as I said, I'm quite inexperienced in such matters, but it certainly seems
Out
to me...
of the house she shall go at once. That part of it is as clear as daylight.
Yes, that is quite clear.
Where is she to go? We should not be justified.
Where to? I home to her father, of course.
Whom did you say?
To her father. Oh, it's not her father. Oh, good heavens, Mrs. Alvin, how is such a thing possible? You surely may have been mistaken in spite of everything.
There was no chance of mistake, more's the pity. Joanna was obliged to confess it to me, and my husband couldn't deny it, so there was nothing else to do but to hush it up.
No, that was the only thing
The
to
girl
do.
was sent away at once and was given a tolerably liberal sum to hold her tongue. She looked after the rest herself when she got to town. She renewed an old acquaintance with the carpenter Engstrand, gave him a hint, I suppose, of how much money she had got, and told him some fairy tale about a foreigner who had been here in his yacht in the summer. So she and Engstrand were married in a great hurry.
I don't understand it. I clearly remember Engstrand coming to me to arrange the marriage. He was full of contrition and accused himself bitterly for his and his fiancee's shameless
Of course, he
behavior.
had to take the blame on himself.
But the deceitfulness of it, and with me too, I positively would not have believed it of Jacob Engstrand. And the immorality of that marriage, simply for the sake of the money. How much was the sum the girl had?
It was $300.
Well, just think of it, letting yourself be bound in marriage to a fallen woman for a paltry
What
$300.
about myself then? I let myself be bound in marriage to a fallen man.
Heaven forgive you, what are you saying, a fallen man?
Suppose my husband was any purer when I went with him to the altar than Joanna was when Engstrand agreed to marry her?
Two cases are as different as day from
So
night.
very different after all. It is true there was a great difference in the price paid between a paltry $300 and a whole fortune.
How can you compare the two things? I presume you consulted your own heart and your relations?
I thought you understood where what you call my heart had strayed to at that time.
If I'd understood anything of the kind, I would not have been a daily guest in your husband's home.
Well, at any rate, this much is certain. I didn't consult myself in the matter at all.
Surely you consulted those nearest to you, as was right. Your mother, your two aunts.
Yes, that is true. The three of them settled the whole matter for me. It seems incredible to me now how clearly they made out that it would be sheer folly to reject such an offer. But my mother could only see what all that fine prospect has led to.
No one can be responsible for the result of it. Anyway, this is to be said for the marriage. It was made in complete conformity with law and order.
Law and order. I often think it is that is at the bottom of all the misery in the world.
Mrs. Alvin, it is very wicked of you to say that.
Maybe so. But I don't attach importance to those obligations and considerations any longer. I cannot. I must struggle for my freedom.
What do you mean?
I ought never to have concealed what sort of a life my husband led. But I had not the courage to do otherwise then, for my own sake either. I was too much of a coward.
A coward?
If others had known anything of what happened, they would have said, poor man. It is natural enough he should go astray when he has a wife that has run away from him.
They would have had a certain amount of justification for saying so.
If I had been the woman I ought, I would have taken Oswald into my confidence and said to him, listen, my son, your father was a dissolute man, and I would have told him all I have told you from beginning to end.
I'm almost shocked at you, Mrs. Alvin.
I know quite well I'm shocked at myself when I think of it. I am coward enough for that.
Can you call it cowardice that you simply did your duty? Have you forgotten that a child should love and honor his mother and father?
Don't let us talk in such general terms. Suppose we say, ought Oswald to love and honor Mr. Alfie?
You are a mother. Isn't there a voice in your heart that forbids you to shatter your son's ideals?
What about the truth?
What about his ideals?
Ideals! What about the truth? Oh, if only I were not such a coward.
Don't spurn ideals, Mrs. Alving. They have a way of avenging themselves cruelly. Take Oswald's case now. He hasn't many ideals, and more's the pity. But this much I have seen. His father is something of an ideal to him.
All right,
His
then.
conception of his father is what you have inspired and encouraged by your letters.
Yes, I was swayed by duty and consideration for others. That is why I lied to my son year in and year out. Oh, what a coward! What a coward I have been!
You have built up a happy illusion in your son's mind, and that is the thing you certainly ought not to undervalue.
Oh, who knows if that is such a desirable thing after all? But anyway, I don't intend to put up with any goings-on with Regine. I am not going to let him get the poor girl into trouble.
Oh, good heavens, so that would be a frightful
I
thing.
knew whether he meant it seriously and whether it would mean happiness for him.
In what way? I don't
That's
understand.
impossible. Regine is not equal to it, unfortunately.
I don't understand. What do you mean?
If I were not such a miserable coward, I would say to him, marry her, or make any arrangement you like with her, only let there be no deceit in the matter.
Heaven forgive you. Are you actually suggesting anything so abominable, so unheard of as a marriage between them?
What do you call it? Tell me honestly, Mr. Manders, don't you suppose there are plenty of married couples out here in the country that are just as nearly related as they are?
I'm sure I don't understand what you mean.
Did you do?
Suppose you're talking about those cases? Well, possibly. It is only too true, unfortunately, that family life is not as stainless as it should be, but for what you hint at, it is impossible at all events to tell with any certainty. Here, on the other hand, for you, a mother, to be willing to allow your
I'm
son...
not willing to allow it. I would not allow it for anything in the world.
Because you're a coward, as you put it. But what if you were not a coward? Great heavens, what a revolting union.
For that matter, we are all descended from a union of that description, so we are told. And who was it that was responsible for this state of things, Mr. Manders?
I cannot discuss such questions with you, Mrs. Alving. You are not in the right frame of mind. But for you to dare say it is cowardly of you to
I
even
will tell you what I mean by that. I am frightened and timid because I am obsessed by the presence of ghosts that I never can get rid of.
The presence of what?
Ghosts. When I heard Regine and Oswald in there, it was just like seeing ghosts before my eyes. I am half inclined to think we are all ghosts, Mr. Manders. It is not only what we have inherited from our fathers and mothers that exists again in us, but all sorts of old dead ideas and all kinds of old dead beliefs and things of that kind. They are not actually alive in us, but there they are, dormant all the same, and we can never be rid of them. Whenever I take up a newspaper and read it, I fancy I see ghosts creeping between the lines. There must be ghosts all over the world. They must be as countless as the grains of the sands, it seems to me. And we are so miserably afraid of the light. All of us.
There we have the outcome of all your reading. Fine fruit it is born, this abominable, subversive, free-thinking literature.
Oh, dear, my friend. You are the one who made me begin to think, and I owe you my best thanks for it.
I?
Yes, by forcing me to submit to what you call my duty and my obligations, by praising as right and just what my whole soul revolted against, as it would against something abominable. That was what led me to examine your teachings critically. I only wanted to unravel one point in them, but as soon as I had got that unraveled, the whole fabric came to pieces. And then I realized that it was only machine-made.
Is that all I accomplished by the hardest struggle of my life?
Call it rather the most ignominious defeat of your life.
It was the greatest victory of my life, Helen. Victory over myself.
It was a wrong done to both of us.
A wrong? Was it wrong for me to entreat you as a wife to go back to your lawful husband when you came to me, half distracted and crying? Was that a wrong?
Yes, I think it was.
We two do not understand one another.
Not anymore, at any rate.
Helen.
One so easily forgets one's own feeling.
Not I. I'm the same as I always was.
Yes. Yes. Don't let us talk any more about the old days. You are buried up to your eyes now in committees and all sorts of business. And I am here, fighting with ghosts.
Let me help you. After all I've been horrified to hear from you today, I cannot conscientiously allow a young, defenseless girl to remain in your home.
Don't you think it would be best if we could get her settled by some suitable marriage? I mean,
Undoubtedly, I think that would be best for you. Regine is at an age now. But I don't know much about these things.
yes, Regine developed early.
Yes, she did, didn't she? I noticed she was remarkably well developed bodily at the time I prepared her for confirmation. Still, under the circumstances, she needs to go home under her father's... He's just not her father. He's asked me to come down to the orphanage to conduct a prayer meeting in celebration of the opening. Bye for the present. Keep your eyes open for when Osvald comes back. I'll come back and see you again.
Osvald, are you still sitting at table? I thought you had gone out for a little turn.
In weather like this? Wasn't that Mr. Manders that went out just now?
Yes, he has gone over to the orphanage.
Oh.
Osvald, dear, you should be careful with that liqueur. It is strong.
It's a good protective against the damp.
Wouldn't you rather come and sit by me?
All right. Just one drop more. There. Where's the pastor gone?
I told you. He had gone over to the orphanage.
Oh. So you did?
Shouldn't sit so long in the dining room at table, Osvald.
But it's so nice and cozy, Mother dear. Think of what it means to me. To have come home. To sit at my mother's own table, in my mother's own room, and enjoy the charming meals she gives me.
My dear, dear boy.
What else is there for me to do here? I have no occupation.
No occupation?
Not in this ghastly weather. And there isn't a blink of sunshine all day long. Not to be able to work.
I don't believe you were wise to come home.
Yes, Mother. I had to.
Because I would 10 times rather give up the happiness of having you with me sooner
Tell me,
than
Mother.
that you...
Is it really such a great happiness for you to have me at home again?
Ask.
I should have thought it would have been pretty much the same to you whether I was here or away.
You have the heart to say that to your mother.
But you have been quite happy living without me so far.
Yes, that is true. I have lived without you.
Mother, May I sit beside you?
Of course, my dear boy.
I must tell you something.
What?
I can't bear it any longer.
Bear what?
I couldn't bring myself to write to you about it since I've been at home.
Osvald, what is it?
With yesterday and today, I've tried to push my thoughts away from me, to free myself from them, but I can't.
You must speak plainly, Osvald.
Sit still, Mother, and I will try and tell you. I have made a good deal of the fatigue I have felt after my journey.
What a fact!
That is not what is the matter. It is no ordinary fatigue.
You are not ill, Osvald.
Sit still, Mother. Do take it quietly. I am not exactly ill. Not ill in the usual sense. I shall never be able to work anymore. Never. Never.
Oh, come right, my dear precious boy. It's nothing but over.
A living death, Mother. Can you imagine anything so horrible?
Is this what are you telling me?
Hush! Listen. What's happening? I hear shouting. As I glare in the sky. The orphanage is on fire. Father's orphanage, the whole place is in flames!
Oh, wait! Everything burned down to the ground.
It's burning still in the basement.
I think why Osvald doesn't come back. There is no chance of saving anything.
What a night. I've never gone through anything as dreadful.
Engstrand told me he thought it started from the candles at the prayer meeting. He said no one touched the lights but you. He thought he saw you snuff out one of the candles and throw a bit of the wick into a pile of wood shavings. It's not your habit to snuff a candle with your fingers.
Such a calamity. What a terrible loss. What?
But how could it have happened?
Don't ask me. How should I know? You're not going to
Osvald
suggest...
won't come back. He can't seem to tear himself away. Well, Mr. Manders, you got out of making your speech after all.
Oh, I would so gladly.
It is just as well it has happened. This orphanage would never have come to any good.
Don't you think so? But it's nonetheless an extraordinary... well, tragedy.
Nonsense. We will discuss it simply from a business point of view. I suppose you'll be leaving on the next boat.
Yes, it goes in about an hour.
Please take all the documents back with you. I don't want to hear another word about the matter. I have something else to think about now.
Mrs. Alvey.
Later on, I will send you a power of attorney to deal with it exactly as you please.
I shall be happy to undertake that. I'm afraid the original intention of the bequest will have to be entirely altered now.
Of course.
Provisionally, I would suggest this way of disposing of it. Make over the remaining property to the parish. The land is undoubtedly not without a certain value and can be used for some purpose or another. As for the interest on the remaining capital that is on deposit in the bank, possibly I might make suitable use of it towards some undertaking that promises to be of use to the town.
Do exactly as you please. The whole thing is a matter of indifference to me now.
Now I must be off. Regine has asked to come with me now that the orphanage is gone and Osvald is here to assist you. I thought you would have no hesitation on that under the circumstances.
None. Goodbye, Mr. Manders.
Goodbye, Mrs. Alvey. May the spirit of truth and righteousness soon enter into this house. Father's memory will be wiped out.
everything will be burnt. I soon will be burnt up too.
You should not have stayed so long over there, my poor boy. Let me wipe your face, Oswald.
Thank you, Mother.
Aren't you tired, Oswald? Don't you want to go to sleep?
No. No, not to sleep. I never sleep. I only pretend to. That will come soon enough.
I am afraid that you really are ill, my darling boy.
Mother, it is my mind that is broken down, gone to pieces.
Oswald, look at me. No, no, it isn't true. My poor unhappy boy, how has this horrible thing happened?
Oh, that is just what I cannot possibly understand. I have never lived recklessly in any sense, Mother. You must believe that of me. I've never done that.
I haven't a doubt of it, Oswald.
Yet this comes upon me all the same. This terrible disaster.
Oh, but it will all come right again, my dear precious boy. It is nothing but overwork. Believe me, that is so.
I thought so too at first. But it isn't so.
Tell me all about it. When did you first feel anything?
It was just after I had been home last time and I got back to Paris. I began to feel the most violent pains in my head, mostly at the back, I think. It was as if a tight band of iron was pressing on me from my neck upwards.
And then?
Well, at first I thought it was nothing but the headaches I always used to be so much troubled with while I was growing. But it wasn't. I soon saw that. I couldn't work any longer. I would try and start some big new picture, but it seemed as if all my faculties had forsaken me, as if all my strengths were paralyzed. I couldn't manage to collect my thoughts. My head seemed to swim. Everything went round and round. It was a horrible feeling. At last I sent for a doctor. From him I learned the truth.
The truth? What do you mean?
He was one of the best doctors there. He made me describe what I felt, and then he began to ask me a whole heap of questions which seemed to me to have nothing to do with the matter. I couldn't see what he was driving at.
Well?
At last he said, "You have had the canker of disease in you practically from your birth." The actual word he used was vermalou.
What did he mean by that?
Well, I couldn't understand him either. And I asked him for a clear explanation, and then the old cynic said,
What did he say?
he said the sins of the fathers are visited on the children.
Sins of the father.
I nearly struck him in the face.
Sins of the father.
Yes. Just imagine. Well, naturally, I assured him that what he thought was impossible, but do you think he paid any heed to me? No. He persisted in his opinion. It was only when I got out your letters and translated to him all the passages that referred to Father that...
Well, and then?
Well, then, of course, he had to admit that he was on the wrong track. And then I learned the truth. The incomprehensible truth. I ought to have had nothing to do with the joyous, happy life I had lived with my comrades. It had been too much for my strength. So it was my own fault.
No, Oswald, don't...
There's no other explanation of it possible, he said. That is the most horrible part of it. My whole life incurably ruined just because of my own imprudence. All that I wanted to do in the world, not to dare to think of it anymore, not to be able to think of it. Oh, if only I could live my life over again. If only I could undo what I have done. If only it had been something I'd inherited, something I could not help. But instead of that, disgracefully stupidly, thoughtlessly thrown away one's health, one's happiness, everything in the world, one's future, one's life.
No, my darling boy, that is impossible. Things are not so desperate as you think.
Don't know. And to think, Mother, that I should bring all this sorrow upon you. Many a time have I almost wished and hoped that you really did not care so very much for me.
I, Osvald, my only son, all that I have in the world, the only thing I care about.
Yes, I know that is so. When I'm at home, I know that is true. And that is one of the hardest parts of it to me. But now you know all about it. And now we won't talk any more about it today. I can't stand thinking about it long at a time. Let me have something to drink, Mother.
To drink? What do you want?
Oh, anything you like. A brandy.
Yes, but my dear
Oh,
Osvald,
don't
that's
tell me
not...
I mustn't, Mother. Do be nice. I must have something to drown these gnawing thoughts. This incessant rain. They go on week after week, a whole month. Never a ray of sunshine. I don't remember having seen the sunshine once when I've been at home.
Osvald, you are thinking of going away from me.
I'm not thinking about anything. I can't think about anything. I have to leave that alone.
We need light. Osvald, don't keep anything back from me.
I don't, Mother. It seems to me I've told you a good lot. That's right. I knew my mother wouldn't let her son go thirsty.
Oh, dear boy, how could I refuse you anything now?
Is that true, Mother? Do you mean it?
Mean what?
That you couldn't deny me anything?
Dear Osvald,
Gosh!
what did you mean when you asked if I could refuse you nothing?
Tell me this. I thought you and Mr. Manders seemed so strange, so quiet at dinner.
Did you notice that?
Yes. Tell me. What do you think of Regine?
What do I think of her?
Yes, isn't she splendid?
Osvald, you don't know her as well as I do.
What of that?
Regine was too long at home, unfortunately. I ought to have taken her under my charge sooner.
Yes, but isn't she splendid to look at, Mother?
Regine has many serious faults.
Yes, but what of that?
But I am fond of her all the same, and I have made myself responsible for her. I wouldn't for the world have her come to any harm.
Mother, Regine is my only hope of salvation.
What do you mean?
I can't go on bearing all this agony of mind alone.
Haven't you your mother to help you to bear it?
Yes, I thought so. That was why I came home to you. There's no use, I see that it isn't. I cannot spend my life here.
Osvald.
I must live a different sort of life, Mother. So I shall have to go away from you. I don't want you watching it.
My unhappy boy. But Osvald, as long as you are ill...
If it was only a matter of feeling ill, I would stay with you, Mother. You are the best friend I have in the world.
Yes, I am that, Osvald, and I'm
All
not...
this torment, the regret, the remorse, the deadly fear, this horrible fear.
Fear of what? What do you mean?
I don't know what it is. Don't ask me any more about it. I can't put it into words.
Do you think we country people don't know how to live?
Isn't Regine splendid to look at? What a figure. A picture of health.
Sit down, Osvald, and let us have a quiet talk.
You don't know, Mother, that I owe Regine a little reparation.
You?
Oh, it was only a little thoughtlessness, call it what you like. It was something quite innocent anyway. The last time I was home,
Yes.
she used to often ask me questions about Paris, and I would tell her one thing or another about life there. And I remember saying one day, wouldn't you like to go there yourself?
Well?
I saw her blush, and she said, yes, I should like to very much. All right, I said, I dare say it might be managed, or something of that sort.
And then?
Well, I naturally had forgotten all about it. But the day before yesterday, I happened to ask her if she was glad I was to be so long at home.
Well?
She looked so queerly at me and asked, What is to become of my trip to Paris? And then I got it out of her that she had taken the thing seriously and had been thinking about me all the time and had set herself to learn French.
So that was
oh,
why
Mother, when I
she-
saw this fine, splendid, handsome girl standing there in front of me, well, I'd never paid any attention to her before then, but now, when she stood there as if with open arms, ready for me to take her to myself,
Osvald.
then I realized that my salvation lay in her. For I saw the joy of life in
The
her.
joy of life. Is there salvation in that?
Have you noticed how well she walks? So firmly and confidently.
It cannot be,
Well, it's
Osvald.
settled. You must see that. It is no use forbidding it.
Osvald, what was it you were saying about the joy of life?
Oh, Mother. The joy of life. You don't know very much about that at home here. I shall never realize it here.
Not even when you are with me.
Never at home. But you can't understand that.
Yes, indeed, I almost think I do understand you now.
That and the joy of work. They're really the same thing at bottom. But you don't know anything about that either.
But you are right. Tell me some more about it, Osvald.
Well, all I mean is that here, people are brought up to believe that work is a curse and a punishment for sin, and that life is a state of wretchedness, and the sooner we can get out of it, the better.
Vale of tears, yes, and we quite conscientiously make
But
it.
the people over there will have none of that. There is no one there who really believes doctrines of that kind any longer. Over there, the mere fact of being alive is thought to be a matter for exultant happiness. Mother, have you noticed that everything I have painted has turned upon the joy of life? Always upon the joy of life, unfailingly. There is light there and sunshine and a holiday feeling in people's faces, beaming with happiness, and that is why I am afraid to stay at home here with you.
Afraid? What are you afraid of here with me?
I am afraid that all these feelings that are so strong in me would degenerate into something ugly here.
Do you think that is what would
I am
happen?
certain that it would. Even if one lived the same life at home here as over there, it would never really be the same life.
I see clearly how it all happened.
What do you say?
I see it now for the first time, and now I can speak.
Mother, I don't understand.
Now, my son, you shall know the whole truth. Osvald, Regine.
Regine is going away with me as my wife.
Neither of those things will happen, for now I can speak openly.
Mother, what is it that is being concealed from me?
Osvald, have you not your mother to give you a helping hand?
You. No, Mother. You will never give me the kind of helping hand I mean. You. After all, you have the best right.
Yes. Now I can, Osvald. A little while ago, we were talking about the joy of life. And what you said seemed to shed a new light upon everything in my whole life.
I don't in the
You
least.
should have known your father in his young days in the army. He was full of the joy of life, I can tell you.
Yes, I know.
It gave me a holiday feeling only to look at him. Full of irrepressible energy and exuberant spirit.
What then?
Well, then this boy, full of the joy of life, for he was just like a boy then, had to make his home in a second-rate town, which had none of the joy of life to offer him, but only dissipations. He had to come out here and live an aimless life. He had only an official post. He had no work worth devoting his whole mind to. He had nothing more than official routine to attend to. He had not a single companion capable of appreciating what the joy of life meant. Nothing but idlers and tipplers.
Mother,
and so the inevitable happened.
What was the
You
inevitable?
said yourself this evening what would happen in your case if you stayed at home.
What do you mean by that? That Father...
Your poor father never found any outlet for the overmastering joy of life that was in him. And I brought no holiday spirit into his home either.
You did not.
I had been taught about duty and the sort of thing that I believed in so long here. Everything seemed to turn upon duty, my duty or his duty. And I'm afraid I made your poor father's home unbearable to him, Osvald.
Why didn't you ever say anything about it to me in your letters?
I looked at it as a thing I could speak of to you, who were his son.
What way did you look at it?
I only saw the one fact, that your father was a lost man before ever you were born. And then I had the one thought in my mind day and night, that Regine in fact had as good a right in this house as my own boy had.
Regine.
Yes, now you know.
Regine? My sister?
Her mother had many good qualities. Regine left with Mr. Manders tonight.
Left? But this is her home. She is gone?
Yes.
What? I think it's all wrong.
Oh, my dear boy, has it been a great shock to you?
All this about father, do you mean?
It's about your unhappy father. I am so afraid it may have been too much for you.
What makes you think that? Well, naturally it has taken me entirely by surprise, but after all, I don't know that it matters much to
What's the
me.
matter? That your father's life was such a terrible failure.
Well, of course I can feel sympathy for him, but I don't think that really has any bearing.
More than that, for your own father.
Father, I never knew anything of my father. I don't remember anything else about him except that he once made me sick.
It's dreadful to think of. But surely a child should feel some affection for his father, whatever happened.
When the child has nothing to thank his father for, when he has never known him, do you really cling to that antiquated superstition, you, who are so broad-minded in other things?
Call it nothing but a superstition.
Yes, and you can see that for yourself quite clearly, Mother. It is one of those beliefs that are put into circulation in the world that we all...
Ghosts of beliefs.
Yes. You might call them ghosts.
Osvald, and you don't love me either.
Well, you, I know it.
You know me, yes, but is that all?
I know how fond you are of me, and I ought to be grateful to you for that. Besides, you can be so tremendously useful to me now that I am ill.
Yes, can I, Osvald? I could almost bless your illness as it has driven you home to me. For I see quite well that you are not my very own yet. You must be one.
Yes. All that is just a way of talking. You must remember, I am a sick man, Mother. I can't concern myself much with anyone else. I have enough to do thinking about myself.
I will be very good and patient.
And cheerful too, Mother.
Yes, my dear boy, you are quite right. Have I taken away all your remorse and self-reproach?
Yes. You have done that. You will take away the fear.
Fear?
Regine would have done it for one kind
I
word.
don't understand you. What fear do you mean, and what has Regine to do with it?
Is it very late, Mother?
It is early morning. The dawn is breaking already on the heights. And the sky is clear, Osvald. In a little while you will see the sun.
I am glad of that. After all, there may be many things yet for me to be glad of and to live for.
I should hope so.
Even if I am not able to work.
You will soon find you are able to work again, my dear boy. You have no longer all those painful, depressing thoughts to brood over.
No. It is a good thing you have been able to rid me of those fancies. If only now I could overcome this one thing. Let us have a little chat, Mother.
Yes. Let us.
The sun is rising. And now you know all about it, so I don't feel the fear any longer.
I know all about
Mother,
what?
isn't it the case that you said this evening there was nothing in the world you would not do for me if I asked you?
Yes, certainly I said so.
And will you be as good as your word, Mother?
You may rely upon that, my own dear boy. I have nothing else to live for but you.
Yes, well, listen to me, Mother. You are very strong-minded, I know. I want you to sit quite quiet when you hear what I'm going to tell you.
What is this dreadful
You
thing?
mustn't scream. Will you promise me that? We're going to sit and talk it over quite quietly. Will you promise me that, Mother?
Yes, I promise. Only tell me what it is.
Oh, then. You must know that this fatigue of mine, and my not being able to think about my work, all that is not really the illness itself.
What is the illness itself?
What I am suffering from is hereditary. It lies here.
No!
No, don't scream. I can't stand it. Yes, I tell you, it lies here, waiting. And any time, any moment, it may break out.
Oh,
Do keep quiet. That is the state I am in.
It isn't true, Oswald. It is impossible. It can't be.
I had one attack while I was abroad. It passed off quickly, but when I had learned the condition I had been in, and this dreadful, haunting fear took possession of me.
What's the fear then?
Yes, it is so appallingly horrible. You know, if it had only been an ordinary mortal disease, I'm not so much afraid of dying. Of course, I should like to live as long as I can.
Yes, Oswald, you must.
This is so incredibly horrible. To become like a helpless child again, to have to be fed, to have to be... It is unspeakable.
My child has his mother to tend.
No! Never! That is just what I won't endure. I dare not think what it would mean to linger on like that for years. To get old and gray like that. And you might die before I did, because it doesn't necessarily have a fatal end quick. The doctor said. He called it a kind of softening of the brain or something of that sort. That expression sounds so nice. It always makes me think of cherry-colored velvet curtains. Something that is soft to stroke. And now you have taken Regine from me. If I had had her here now, I would have asked her, and she would have given me a helping hand, I know.
Do you mean, my darling boy, is there any help in the world I would not be willing to give you?
When I had recovered from the attack I had abroad, the doctor told me that when it recurred, and it will recur, there would be no more hope.
And he was heartless enough to tell
I insisted on knowing. I told him I had arrangements to make. And so I had. Mother, do you see this?
What is it?
Morphia powders.
Oswald, my boy.
I have 12 of them saved up.
Give me the box, Oswald!
Not yet, Mother.
I shall never get over this.
You must. If I had had Regine here now, I would have told her quietly how things stand with me, and asked her to give me this last helping hand. She would have done it, I am certain.
Never!
If this horrible thing had come upon me, and she had seen me lying helpless like a baby, past help, past saving, past hope, with no chance of recovery.
Where in the world would Regine have done it?
Regine would have done it. Regine was so splendidly light-hearted, and she would very soon have tired of looking after an invalid like me.
Thank heaven Regine is not here!
Well, now you have got to give me that helping hand. Who has a better right than you?
Your mother.
Just for that reason.
I who gave you your life!
I never asked you for life. And what kind of a life was it you gave me? I don't want it. You shall take it back.
Ow!
Don't leave me. Where are you going?
Fetch the doctor to you, Oswald!
You shan't go out. No one shall come in.
Oswald! Oswald, my child!
Have you a mother's heart? Can you bear to see me suffering this unspeakable terror?
There is my hand on it.
Will you?
If it becomes necessary. But it shan't become necessary, no. Oh, it is impossible it should.
Let us hope so. And let us live together as long as we can. Thank you, Mother.
You feel calmer now?
Yes.
There's only in a dreadful fancy of yours, Oswald, nothing but fancy. All this upset has been bad for you. And now you will get some rest. At home, with your own mother, my darling boy. You shall have everything you want, just as you did when you were a little child. And now, the attack is over. You see how easily it passed off? I knew it would. And look, Osvald, what a lovely day we are going to have. Brilliant sunshine. Now, you will be able to see your home properly.
Mother, give me the sun.
What do you say?
The sun. The sun.
Osvald, what is the matter with you? What is it? Osvald? What is the matter with you? Osvald. Osvald, look at me. Don't you know me?
The sun. The sun.
I can't bear it. I can't bear it! I never! Where has he got it? Here. No. No. No! Yes. No. No!
The sun. The sun.